In this video, I'll be teaching you how to massage and pleasure your partner's prostate. And if you're not familiar with the prostate is a very, very pleasurable part of the male reproductive system, and it's often referred to as the male G-spot. And the prostate, the easiest way for you to stimulate it is through the anus. And because of this, a lot of men have not discovered the pleasure potential of their prostate because there's kind of this taboo and shame associated with going inside of the anus for pleasure. But the truth is that this is a highly erogenous zone for many, many men and can actually even strengthen and intensify their normal orgasms. So you can combine prostate massage and prostate stimulation with other types of stimulation techniques just to enhance the overall experience. And there is kind of this notion in our culture that men get pleasure just from their penis and from external stimulation, and a lot of men, especially straight men, can have this like, oh, like, no, I don't feel comfortable with that, or maybe that means that I'm gay, and there's like all these weird cultural associations with it. But the truth is that it's just a part of your body that feels good regardless of your sexual orientation. Having pleasure from your prostate doesn't mean anything except for the fact that it's just a pleasurable part of your body. So if your partner has been wanting to explore a little bit more of prostate play, or if it's something that you brought to him and that he's curious about, I hope that this video will empower you with some tools of how to actually stimulate his prostate. So before I go into the techniques, I want to talk a little bit about the attitude, because as I said, for a lot of men, it can feel a little bit edgy to go there, especially if it's the first time, and it's also really, really vulnerable. Especially as a woman, I'm sure that you can relate that having someone penetrate you feels quite vulnerable. It's someone literally going inside of your body. So as the giver, you want to be really mindful and really present, and you want to hold a really safe space, and that's mainly through your energy and your attitude. So not making jokes, or not, thinking about something else, or being distracted while you're inside of him, because that can feel really edgy and uncomfortable, but really fully being present and having a really warm and open inner attitude. Now, when it comes to preparing for prostate play, as the giver, you want to make sure that your nails aren't too long or too sharp, because obviously that's not going to feel pleasurable, and you want to make sure that your hands are clean, so washing your hands beforehand. Now, as a receiver, you want to be as clean as possible. Obviously, that's also going to help you relax, because oftentimes there's that mental thing of like, oh my god, maybe it's dirty, or like, what if, something really uncomfortable or embarrassing happens. So take a shower, clean yourself nicely down there. If you want, you can even do an enema just to feel really, really relaxed, and that's basically it. Now, when it comes to actually getting into it, I don't suggest going from 0 to 100. So if you're both not in the mood yet, don't go straight to, okay, I'm gonna pleasure your prostate now. Chances are that's not going to work very well. Start by getting in the mood and warming up his entire body and just getting in an erotic mindset. So you can make out, maybe giving a hand job or a blow job, getting both of you in a pretty aroused state. Now, once you're ready to start to go to the prostate, before going in, I really suggest warming up the outside area around the anal opening. And that's because we want that area to be as relaxed as possible, because for a lot of people, the anal sphincters can be really, really tight. And if they're very tight, it's just going to feel painful or uncomfortable. So some techniques to warm up the outside. Firstly, you can use your entire palm and kind of press it on the perineum and the opening of his anus and just make little circles. I suggest starting with the entire palm of your hand versus a finger, because when you use 1 or 2 fingers, it feels much more invasive, whereas when you use more skin, it feels much more safe, and it's like a nice way to slowly ease into it and get comfortable with that sensation. So make little circles with the palm of your hand, and here you can play with different pressures and different speeds because it's going to feel differently. If it's the first time that you're doing this with your partner, communication is key. So ask him, be like, does this feel good, or do you prefer it like this? Do you like it slow like this, or do you like it a little bit faster like that? So have that feedback and that communication so you can really find out what works for your partner specifically. Now, another nice way to warm up that area is with this side of your hand, and you can choose to do it with one hand or two hands, to go up and down between the butt cheeks and kind of pressing towards the entrance. So you could do it with one hand or you can do it with two hands. And again, here is just a nice way to start to relax and open that area without it feeling too invasive. Now, after doing that for a while, you can start to make small circles with your thumbs around the anal opening, not pressing on the opening yet, but just going around it and kind of massaging in small little circles. Then once your partner starts to relax more, you can take two fingers and kind of press on the entrance and make circles around the entrance, making sure not to push in yet, but just to stay around the entrance. Again, slowly relaxing the area. Here you can also use communication. If you notice that he's tensing, a good way to tell is if the butt cheeks are clenching, then tell him to relax. Sometimes we're not aware that we're holding tension, so just tell him to take a deep breath, to relax. Maybe you want to caress the rest of his body. Maybe you want to stroke his cock a little bit, just to keep the entire mood kind of sensual, because otherwise it can start to feel a bit medical. A lot of men have associations of like medical exams with their prostate being examined. So try to keep it erotic. So if you notice that he's tensing, try to maybe move away from that area a little bit, go to his cock, maybe make out a little bit, and then slowly start to introduce it again. Once your partner feels ready, you can slowly start to go inside. You can go in with one finger or two fingers. The key here is to use a lot of lubrication. Obviously, we don't want it to feel dry. That's not going to feel good. So use as much lubrication as possible to make that process as smooth and pleasurable as possible. And when you go inside, you want to go in slowly. And I suggest not putting in your entire finger at once, unless your partner is really, really used to that, but putting in one knuckle at a time. So putting in one knuckle and then just asking him to breathe so he can kind of get used to the sensation, especially if it's the first time. It can feel different. You know, it's a sensation he's probably hasn't had before. So give him some time to get used to it and to kind of breathe into it. And then slowly start to insert two knuckles until you're all the way in. And as you do this, I really recommend to be stroking his cock, making out, caressing the rest of his body, just so his entire body stays activated. It really helps for him to relax and to get over that mental like, oh my God, something is going up my ass, and for it to feel much more pleasurable. Now, once you're inside, if he's laying on his back, you want to bring your fingers pointing upwards towards his belly button, and when you touch that upper wall of his anal canal, you'll likely feel something that feels kind of like a walnut. So the male prostate is about the size and texture of a walnut, and you can feel it. It's quite pronounced usually. And once you find it, one of the more pleasurable techniques for most men is the come here motion. So if you're inside, you're just caressing his prostate in this come here motion, very similar to the female G-spot, because that's also a very famous technique that a lot of women like on their G-spot. So just doing this come here motion, and again, while you do this, ideally also stimulate the shaft of his penis, the rest of his body, because that is going to make the whole experience a million times more pleasurable for him. Now, besides the come here motion, you can also make small little circles, or you can press into it as well. And with all of these techniques, changing the speed and pressure is going to change the sensation dramatically. So if you go like this versus going like this, it's going to feel very different. If you make very slow circles versus very fast circles, it's going to feel very different. So again, communicate with your partner and do each technique for at least a minute and then ask him how it feels. So don't start doing it and right away be like, does this feel good? Because sometimes it takes a little bit of time for that whole area to get activated and for it to start to feel good. So give it a little bit of time to get warmed up and then check in with your partner if he would like more pressure, less pressure, faster, or slower. And one last tip is not to go in and out. So don't like do the technique and then take your finger out and then put your finger back and then go back to it, because the going in and coming out can feel a little bit uncomfortable, or that's like a little bit that vulnerable feeling for a lot of men. So once you're inside, try to stay inside until you're done with doing what you want to do down there, and then gently and slowly remove your finger. Again, not pulling it out because that can feel really uncomfortable, but slowly taking out your finger. And when you're done, I suggest again doing a few circles with the palm around the entrance just to kind of close that experience. Otherwise, it can feel a little bit vulnerable. So when you release your finger, just put your hand and just keep on massaging a little bit as you keep on pleasuring him in other ways to conclude that experience. So those are my tips for pleasuring and massaging his prostate. And as always, I always say this, but really the techniques come secondary to the attitude and the energy. So do it with confidence, because also if you look unsure what you're doing, he's not going to be able to relax because he's going to be like, she doesn't know what she's doing. And he can't just receive. So do it with confidence and do it with a really warm and open attitude, knowing that this could feel really vulnerable, really checking in with your partner. If he needs you to slow down, slow down. If it's too much for him, stopping and taking it as a fun, playful experiment. For a lot of men, they discover that they have a lot of pleasure in their prostate. And a lot of men haven't experienced it because they have all these weird notions around, the fact that they shouldn't enjoy anal play. And it's a really beautiful gift to give your partner, because a lot of men haven't really discovered this part of their body because of all the shame and taboo associated with anal play, especially for straight men. So it's a beautiful gift to give to your partner, to actually open him up to a new type of pleasure and to deepen his orgasmic experiences, and just to bring something completely new into your sex life. So I hope you enjoy and have fun experimenting and playing with this, and I will see you in the next video.